Alrighty, everybody. So this is the ball lightning build that everybody's been using. I'm also copying a little bit of it. So here's my stats so far that I used to kill Lilith at level 86. I'm sure you could do this a lot sooner. I think North4 did it like at level 74 or something like that. A lot of it just depends on your gear. If you have really good gear like mana resource and mana reduction items, mana cost reduction, you need resource generation, a lot of items that have that is what you need, is what you're looking for. So this build starts off pretty rough early on, but it starts to snowball exponentially the more items that you get. So I'm just going to go over the items that I have right now. These are not the ideal items, and I'm still looking for better rolls and better stat values. But I'm just going to go over with what I have. So for the first one I put Ever Living, you take less damage from crowd controlled or vulnerable enemies. Since we're fighting a boss, we can apply vulnerable. And we apply that using our vampire powers. Raiment doesn't really affect the boss. The stun on teleport is not it's not enough to stagger the boss since we're doing way too much damage. The glass cannon +2, it helps a little bit for more DPS, but you could probably use a different chassis. You don't have to use raiment for this boss. Gravitational aspect. This is mandatory. You have to use this aspect in order to use this build. Like, there's no exception. Without this aspect, like, the build just will not work. So this is mandatory. The stats on this are pretty ideal. You know, you want attack speed, crit chance, and you want primary resource gen. So because your ball lightnings attack really fast, and you can spawn several of them, you're able to proc the primary resource generator a lot more frequent. And in addition to collecting the crackling energy, which also generates mana back. These little blue balls over here. Mage Lords, since we're using bears, helps us more damage reduction. It's nice. Essus, these are sacred level, but until I find better boots, this is just what I have running. So the extra crit chance is pretty nice. So it's whenever you press evade, you get an extra crit chance. So right now my crit chance is at 38%, but when I press evade, it bumps it up to 56% for a few seconds, which is nice. It helps the DPS boost a little bit more. Sorry about that, my game is lagging. Okay, I'm back. So the weapons that I have, they're not necessarily the ideal stats, but because for some reason the world bosses, they give you max item level. So for weapons, it doesn't really matter necessarily on the stats that it drops. What you want is just max item level. The stats will come in over time. So you want max item level so you can get the most DPS, and that's usually what's most important when you're looking for weapons. But if you do happen to get pretty good weapon drops, you want weapons that give you damage to close. Is one of the more important aspects, or stat values, I mean. You also want intel, all stats, crit damage, and mastery damage, and that would help you out quite a bit. And then for your offhand, you want cooldown reduction, resource generator, mana cost reduction, crit chance. So I don't really have that on any of my weapons, so it's not ideal, but because it is max item level, that's the most important thing. And you can get the max item level just by killing world bosses. I think they spawn like every 3.5 hours. So if you could track those down, you're able to have a shot at getting some of these good weapons that are max item level. I think if you go on helltides.com, it's like a helltide tracker. So you can it tells you when the world bosses are going to spawn. So just make sure you do those every every chance that you get, so you can have a chance of getting like 3 item drops that are max item level. The other important thing you want on your rings, resource generating. That's probably the most important part. Crit chance probably being the second most important. Other than that, it's just finding rings that have ideal stats on them. So you could have max life, damage to close, max mana. But ideally, you want resource generating. Like that's kind of the most important part, and crit chance. And then for your necklace, you want mana cost reduction, +3 to mastery helps a lot. And just any other stats that are pretty good. I'm sure you can find that on the Maxwell website. Everybody's been using it. For abilities, it's just kind of the standard ball lightning build. So there's different variations. This variation is tailored to do bossing because Frost Nova doesn't really apply to us for bosses. You can't really stagger the boss fast enough to make use of the stagger effect from Frost Nova. And then for vulnerable, because we're using the vampire power that applies vulnerable, Frost Nova isn't necessarily needed. So I just use Arc Lash just so you can just generate more mana and spam more ball lightning. But these are the powers that I use. So I have Ravenous, increases your attack speed, very important. Anticipation, faster cooldown reduction, very important. Increased damage to vulnerable enemies, that's also really good. A Cursed Touch, this is what applies to vulnerable. So you have a chance, unlucky hit, to apply vulnerable. And that's how we are able to keep the vulnerable uptime on the boss. For the last one, I picked Infection, mostly because we don't have any really other good DPS options that I see. Metamorphosis doesn't really help us out a lot for bossing. For this one over here, Domination, it only applies if they are stunned, immobilized, frozen, or feared. So since we're not able to stagger the boss, like this doesn't apply. And obviously when you're doing Nightmare Dungeons, you're going to run this instead. But if we're just doing bossing, you don't really need Domination since you can't stagger the boss fast enough to make use of it. So your other options, you could either run Infection, or you could also run Call Familiar. And since Mastery, Ball Lightning is a Mastery skill, you're able to spam this ability. Like it just randomly procs. Just bats come flying in and they can stun. So I'm not sure which of these two options is better, either Call Familiar or Infection. I would assume Infection would be better since it just applies faster dots, but I'm not sure. It's probably very minuscule. I guess another honorable mention is Moonrise. And the main reason for this is just for the attack speed. At max stacks, you can get up to 20% extra attack speed from using Arc Lash. So that's also another thing that you can also use. That's about it as far as powers go. I don't really see anything that's too significant. Hemomancy might be another good option. But once every 4 seconds, it doesn't seem that good because our ball lightning just attacks so fast. You can probably proc Infection or Call Familiar a lot more frequent. This one's only like once every 4 seconds, so I'm not quite sure on the damage comparison between the 3 of them. So just going down the list of the abilities, we have Arc Lash. Go here real quick. So we have Arc Lash over here, Potent Warding, have Elemental Dominance, 3/3. Flame Shield, very important to skip the mechanics. Or not skip, but you can just immune or just not even bother with the mechanics. You just press Flame Shield whenever the lava waves come at you. Teleport's pretty nice. More mobility, Blast Cannon, more damage. Ice Armor, just more damage reduction or more health pool, I guess, the shield. But it's also because you want the extra mana regen, and plus right here with Storm Swell, you need to have a barrier active in order to make use of it. Okay, so down here, mana shield, more damage reduction, a more barrier. Over here, devouring, just more damage. Ball lightning, this is like our bread and butter ability. We have plus 12. We have plus 4 from our pants, and then another plus 3 from our necklace. And then we just put the rest of the points, 5 points, into ball lightning. Over here, static discharge. I just put more points here so I can generate more crackling energy. These little blue balls over here. You pick them up and you get more mana back from this ability. Crackling energy, you gain 12 mana. So you're able to generate a lot of mana just by going in circles like this. And just spamming 1 all over, over and over and over again. This one I just kind of threw a point in here. It probably didn't do anything for this boss since we're not able to stun the enemy. So this point probably just could have went anywhere, honestly. Because this only works whenever you stun an enemy, so it doesn't really apply against bossing. Over here, unstable currents. This helps us out to generate even more ball lightning. It also gives us a lot of attack speed, which helps our DPS a lot. Over here, we have more damage reduction. And right here, it helps us stay alive a little bit. So we have even more damage reduction, as well as we're able to do more crit damage. And our shock skills do also more damage. For our book, we have Firebolt, so we can apply burning. We need to apply burning because we have this passive here. You do more crit strike damage against burning enemies, so that's why we're taking this. And then ball lightning enchantment, you're just able to spam more ball lightning, so just the more the merrier. Typically I would run control on the weapon, but because we're just fighting a boss, we're not able to stagger them fast enough, so I just run Edge Masters. And since we're typically almost full on mana, like every time we run around and pick up the crackling energy, we're able to have a good uptime on being capped out on mana. So Edge Masters just to have extra damage, pretty much. Same with Prodigies as well. It also helps with the mana sustain right here. So since all these are all cooldowns, you're able to also maintain your mana pool as well. So we're just gonna go over, and disobedience of the necklace, more armor. It's always nice, at least for this stage of the game. Probably until I have much better gear, I might not need disobedience, but we'll see. I know if you want to run tier 100 nightmare dungeons, you're gonna need at least I think 13,200 armor is the cap for tier 100. So we have Everliving, Raiment, Gravitational, Mage Lords, Esus, Edge Masters, Storm Swell, Conceited, Prodigies, and Disobedience. Okay, now for a Paragon. So this is pretty much kind of just copying off the Maxroll website build. I'll put a link on that build below. So we have, right now I just put Exploit right here. Have Charged, Reinforced, Control. Control is pretty much useless for this boss fight since we weren't able to stagger the boss fight, so it was pretty much useless for this fight. So you could probably spot in anything, and it would have been helpful. So whenever you're fighting a boss, you don't need control unless you're planning on staggering the boss. We have Destruction over here. And then we have Adapt. And I'm currently level 86, so I don't have a lot of Paragon points unlocked, and my glyphs are still not fully leveled. These are like level 15. Some of them are level 1. So yeah, it's still work in progress. So you're able to, like, once you're like fully capped out, you could probably kill this boss in like under 30 seconds, or even faster, I don't know. But yeah, that's what I have so far. That's just the status report. Probably once I'm fully leveled, I'll probably post some more videos on me doing some nightmare dungeons. I would like to do get Oculus, so I can do Jesus Take the Wheel season 2. I have a different version of that coming up. But until then, this is just what I'm running with. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.